last week, I've used every extra second I have to work my way through Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 in order to save the galaxy. So let's talk about it. Marvel Ultimate Alliance is a top-down team action game for the Switch where most of the Marvel A-list characters are playable. In the game, you have a team of 4 characters making your way through a variety of worlds trying to stop Thanos. In single player, you can switch between any of the 4 people on your team, and the game allows for 4 simultaneous players. Before we get started, I have to say I'm not like this massive gamer. This isn't meant to be a comprehensive review. It's meant to give my experience as a normal guy who played through the game with my family. Also, this is only my second video game review ever, so I'm still getting used to the differences between reviewing a video game and reviewing a movie. I'd like to do more of this in the future, and so I'm kind of figuring it out as I go along. Before I get started, go ahead and tell me what you thought about the game down below in the comment section. Did you love it? Did you hate it? All of that fun stuff. Are you just mad it's only available on the Switch? Let me know down below. With that said, let's get started talking about the good. And I'll kick things off talking about the story. Essentially, the plot line here is an alternate version of the Infinity Saga involving all of the Marvel universe. It's not like really an adaptation of the comic book series. It's not really an adaptation of the MCU films. It's like, all right, let's do a story about Thanos trying to get Infinity Stones, but use all of the different Marvel universes that people are familiar with. So the X-Men, the Defenders, the Inhumans, the Spider-Verse, Venom, they all kind of make appearances inside of it so you can play with almost all of your favorite Marvel characters to try and stop Thanos and save the universe. And while this isn't a direct translation of the mainstream versions of these characters to the video game, they were very aware of who the mainstream is aware of with each of these different groups. So for example, the Guardians of the Galaxy do look an awful lot like those in the movies rather than in the comic books. Next thing we'll talk about is the gameplay, and I'll start off by saying this. The gameplay is simple enough that my 5-year-old daughter was able to join in with us as we were playing. She wasn't very good, but she was able to join in with us, and my 7-year-old son was actually able to beat the game before I beat it. There's a lot of very simple button mashing techniques you can use when you're first starting out to just kind of have some fun as you're leveling up your characters, but as you get better and understand the gameplay more, there's a lot more advanced strategies you can use involving kind of synergies with other characters on your team, building your team so that they have a variety of different skill sets to be able to do different types of attacks against the enemies. So while it does have a very basic way you can play it, as you go along, you can get far more advanced with your strategies and learn all the mechanics of it. Each of the levels are all kind of the same in that they're kind of top-down battles where you battle thugs and then get to boss fights and occasionally have to kind of jump over some things or through some things. There's a couple puzzles thrown into the mix, but it's fairly basic in the way it's done, so it could be a bit repetitive if you only played as the same characters, but the variety in the game comes from the fact that there's over 30 characters to choose from. As you go through the game, you gain more characters, they gain more abilities as they go along. And a big part of the appeal here is that each of the levels are kind of an iconic different location in the Marvel realms. The X-Mansion, the Inhuman city up on the moon. We're going to Asgard for a little bit. You even go to the Dark Realms and battle Dormammu. That's where the variety comes from, all of these different characters, and being able to play with different characters on the same levels has totally different gameplay because the characters are so different, which leads me to talk about the characters. When you start the game, you only have the Guardians of the Galaxy, but as soon as you defeat the first level, then you get about 5 more characters, and as soon as you beat that level, you get about 5 more characters. By about level 5, you have over 20 characters to choose from, and you just keep getting more and more characters. Each character is uniquely designed like their comic book, movie, TV counterparts. So Hulk throws punches, dashes through people, and throws people up in the air. Doctor Strange floats, uses magic, casts spells. Deadpool has a sword and a machine gun. Ghost Rider has a flaming chain that he spins around his head. And because they're all so different and have these different abilities, as you play through the levels, it's a different experience based off who you're playing as. In some levels, you have to like jump over lava and things like that. And when you're playing as a character that can't fly, that's the big challenge of the level. But if you're playing as a character that can fly, which is about half of them, you can just fly over the lava and it's no problem. So those sorts of dynamics make the game have a lot more variety because you want to replay levels with different characters for all the different ways you can interact with the world. So for example, there's a whole set of Spider-Man characters that all can swing around, and that's just such a different way to play the game than if you're Ghost Rider or Black Panther or Daredevil. And for me, that probably is the biggest draw here. We're probably not going to get a Daredevil game anytime soon. We're not going to get Luke Cage the game or Doctor Strange or Guardians of the Galaxy. But because of the nature of this game where you get to select your team and play through this entire big story arc, you can design this game to be your own Guardians of the Galaxy game. You can design it to be your Defenders game, or even just as you're playing as a group. I wanted to play as Daredevil, my daughter wanted to play as Spider-Gwen, and my son wanted to be Venom, and because of that, we could all have the experience that we wanted playing through this very fun story arc of the kind of Infinity Saga in a realm that we like, battling bad guys that we don't like, but we like to not like. That's kind of the big appeal of this game to me. From there, let's move on to the bad. So I'll kick things off here by telling you my experience with how I kind of played the game at first. And essentially, I told my kids we're gonna have a family day playing through this game when it first came out. So we were anxiously awaiting for it to come in the mail. As soon as we got it in the mail, we sat down on the couch with a bunch of candy to start playing through the game and played for about 8 hours straight. Me, my 5-year-old daughter, my 7-year-old son, and about half that time, my wife joining in as well. And I would not at all recommend starting playing this game like that. It made the game a lot more confusing. It made it a lot more difficult. It kind of escalated kind of the learning curve for figuring out how everything worked. That is not a good way to sit down and start playing this game. Sit down by yourself, figure it out real quickly, and then you can explain it to other people. Also, sit down, level up your characters a little bit, and then kind of join in with other people. That's a much more fun way to start playing this game. I actually was not enjoying this game until I played it by myself for a couple hours, and then I was like, oh, okay, now I understand how this game is supposed to be fun. It was kind of a nightmare playing with a group of people, all of us trying to figure it out at once. A lot of this coming down to the controls, specifically because we're breaking down our Switch controllers into people just holding little Joy-Cons, doing the button mashing. There's not as many buttons on it. Some of the buttons are in different locations. It was very difficult to kind of figure out how you're supposed to do things. Even having played through the entire game now, some of the stuff like synergy attacks, I'm still not entirely clear exactly how they're supposed to work or when they're supposed to work. At times, the way that you do these synergy attacks in the game, there's just a little thing that appears at the bottom left of the screen that you'll most likely not notice while you're playing the game because it's kind of a chaotic screen at times. So there's a lot of things like that where it shouldn't be nearly as confusing to do some of the things as it is. Likewise, the game would tend to get really difficult every time you'd get to a boss. So my family, we'd play through the level and we'd be doing fine, and then we'd get to a boss and we'd be stuck there for like an hour, and we have to be like, let's just replay the entire level. We'd replay the level up, get to the boss, and then we'd be able to beat the boss. And we figured out that's kind of the pattern we have to do. We'd have to play through the level like 2 times to be able to beat the boss. And that's pretty frustrating when you're first starting out playing a game, to be like, I just made all this progress, now I have to go back and start back over again. So stuff like that about the game was pretty frustrating. Now, certainly a lot of that goes back to the fact that I played through the game cooperative mode with my 5-year-old daughter on the team, and that certainly added to the difficulty of the team as she doesn't really pull her weight all that much. But that's the way some of you guys are going to play through the game. If you're not going to play through the game that way, you can kind of probably ignore a lot of these negatives. Another big problem in the multiplayer is the camera angle. Your team always has 4 people on it. In most of the levels, some other Marvel characters kind of join in to help you, and then sometimes you'll have 10, 15 bad guys on screen in this big level, so the camera zooms out, in which case it's tough to find yourself because you're so small, or if it's kind of zoomed in, it locks in on certain characters, so some people that are playing will be off screen. There were times where we couldn't get over to characters to kind of revive them because the camera angle locked in the wrong spot. So there's a lot of issues with the camera angle in multiplayer. It's a good bit better when you're playing single player, which once again, after playing 8 hours multiplayer mode and then playing single player mode, I was like, oh, this is actually a lot more fun because I can control the camera angle and see what's happening. But there's a lot of stuff like that that kind of goes on that holds back the multiplayer a little bit. From there, I'll start talking about some of the negatives in general. And the big one here is this is not a cutting edge game at all. It looks like it could have come out on the PlayStation 2 or the Xbox 15 years ago. One of the reasons that they probably didn't release it for the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One is that it would just look ridiculous on those systems. When you put it on a Nintendo Switch, which hasn't been known to be as cutting edge of a system, it works a little bit better there and you can kind of get away with it. It's designed more to be a family cooperative system, so you can forgive some of that stuff. But like the graphics here at times just simply do not look good. They look like they would have been bad graphics 10 years ago. And so when you're playing through it, you're kind of like, really? This is all you could do in the year 2019 when using all the Marvel Universe to give us a game, and this is kind of what it looks like? Even like the cutscenes inside of the game are just these dull sequences of exposition being dropped. They're not big action sequences to kind of drive you from plot point to plot point, or not action based, or at least something moving, changing things up, being interesting. No, it's like you're talking to someone and you click A to continue through the conversation or click X to skip through it. About halfway through the game, I just started skipping most of these conversations because there's just nothing interesting inside of them. There's nothing I needed to hear. It's just like, okay, I get the general gist in the first 2 sentences. Let's skip through this and get to gameplay. Real quick, before I give you my final take on this one, go ahead and tell me what you thought about the game down below in the comment section. Also, if you've enjoyed this video game review, I did review Spider-Man PlayStation 4 last year. You can check that out right up there. Let me know if you want me to do more video game reviews. I'm not looking to do past video game reviews, but moving forward, I want to review new video games as they come out. Let me know which ones you'd be interested in me reviewing. While this game didn't break any new ground and there was quite a bit of frustration when things were getting started, eventually I did have a ton of fun with my family playing all these Marvel characters trying to save the universe. It's a B for me, and I would say it is worth checking out if you have a Switch and you're a big Marvel fan. Remember to check out my review for Spider-Man PlayStation 4 right over there. Let me know down below if you want me to do more video game reviews in the future and which future games you want me to review. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and video games too much.